Today, as you know, we have our mayoral candidates joining us. I would like to thank Mayor Mike Bradley and Councillor Anne-Marie Gillis for joining us today. I have tried many times to reach the other two candidates, Mr. Kip Cuthbert and Mr. Frank Ingham, and was not able to hear back from Mr. Cuthbert and was unable to reach Mr. Ingham, just so everyone is aware of the status. Just a reminder to everyone that Rotary is apolitical. Candidates have been asked to address issues which are of importance to our community. The speaking order was determined randomly. I had two numbers and they selected. Mayor Mike Bradley will be speaking first. Councillor Anne-Marie Gillis will be second. What we're going to start, each candidate will be given 3 minutes to make their opening remarks. And we have a timer. Actually, Bill Hode has his, I can't see that, Bill. Bill Hode has his iPad here and will be turning it so people can see what the time is, so you see what's remaining, and I think Carolyn might be walking around with a 1 minute mark, so you know that as well. As I mentioned, any questions you have for candidates, please write on the cards on the tables. Mike Curry will be circulating to pick them up. Candidates will be given 2 minutes to respond to the questions. And then at the end, each candidate will be given 2 minutes to make closing statements. So could I please call on our two candidates to come up to the front? And we will start with Mayor Mike Bradley making his opening statements. And as I mentioned, that will be 3 minutes.
Bill Hode has warned me, it definitely is 3 minutes. Thank you. An honor to be here. I've always treasured that you made me a Paul Harris Fellow a number of years ago. It meant a lot to me then, those ideals, and it means a lot to me now. Very simple message. I'm tried, I'm tested, and I'm true to Sarnia. I spent the last 33 years of my life investing it in this community and getting an incredible payback from with the support of the people of Sarnia. But I've got a lot more to do, a lot more to do. We need fiscal accountability at City Hall. I was elected last time on a platform of eliminating the debt, continuing to decrease our staff, continuing services, and not overspending. All those things have fallen by the wayside in the last 4 years. All of those things. It's time for a reset. And one of the things I will be asking the new council to look at, if successful, we have the power to establish an Auditor General's office. Sudbury has one, Windsor's looking at one. Independent review of how we spend our money. All you have to do is look at Centennial Park, the Donahue Bridge, the Sarnia Arena, the naming rights issue to know why I want to do that. That is what is needed. Accountability, both on the political side and the administrative side. And I just close by saying this. I will continue to do what I've been doing for 30 years, working with First Nations, business and labor, to build the community, listening to people, and finding solutions to common problems, whether they be economic or social. So with that, I thank you, and I simply say over the 30 years, I've never stopped dreaming big dreams for Sarnia, and will continue to do that if re-elected. Thank you.
Councillor Anne-Marie Gillis, please.
I'm going to readjust.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you very much for the invitation. This is my first opportunity to speak to the Rotary of Sarnia. I have formed partnerships with Blue Water Land and also with After Hours, and it's always been a very positive experience. I'm proud to stand here today because I intend to be the new mayor of the city of Sarnia. This campaign is about true leadership, cooperation, collaboration, and building relationships. It's about being accountable for your actions, appreciating colleagues and foes, and focusing on what is working. Over the past 2 years, the city has been working very well, and I have gained the leadership skills the city needs to propel itself into the future. Sarnia is a city with so much potential. We have to recognize that Sarnia is falling behind our neighbors. They are outperforming us. If we want to grow, we need to support our developers with a supply of land to develop. If we want to grow, we need to support industry by taking advantage of businesses, opportunities, cutting the red tape, and investing in our city to create jobs. Sarnia must become an employer of choice, attracting the best and the brightest, and then empowering them to do their jobs. I want to maximize our beautiful waterfront for those who are ages between 2 and 102. I want to expand our bike network and trail system throughout the city. Continuous improvement on our transit system is a sign of a progressive city. Our environment is important to attracting newcomers. People want to know that we are good stewards of the environment. We are proud of our industrial past, but we have to ensure that people's right to a healthy environment is there. I want to create a city that people want to come to live and work and play. I am a homeowner, just like you. I pay taxes, just like you. The residential property taxes that we are paying right now are financing the majority of your services. We can't continue that. We need stable assessment growth to take that burden off your bill. Many of you in this room have children and grandchildren, and so do I. I know how you feel when you look at your children and you've done all the right things and they still struggle to find meaningful employment. This generation is part of the shared economy. This generation is part of the digital economy, the main disruptor of our economy. We need to embrace these emerging sectors for the future of our children and our grandchildren. Lag behind and they will leave. I want to change that. We need to change that, and I will change that as your new mayor. Thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions. Do you want to follow up?
Thank you very much. Now we will be taking questions. The first question that we're going to start with is, what is the most pressing local priority for the next 4 years? And we will start with Councillor Gillis. And that's 2 minutes.
It's hard to quantify what are the most important priorities, but I would say leadership is the most important priority for us. I would say that governance is the most important priority for us. Get that right, and you will have your council and your staff working together to build a better community. Get that right, and people will want to come to your community. Get that right, and we will have a very successful community that will not have our children and our grandchildren leaving. Because industry and developers, the people of Sarnia will all work together in order to create the Sarnia we want to have. There are other priorities, of course, but I'm not going to get into that right now. I know there are more questions, but for me, the top priority is good governance and leadership.
Well, thank you. I would agree there are so many different issues, and issues change, and they swirl around during any election and then after. Often at the beginning of a new council term, the issues at the beginning and the ones at the end are totally different. As chair of the Economic Partnership over the years, as chair of the Research Park of the Police Board, I've recognized some of the fundamental issues in the community. When you look at mental health issues, you look at addictions, those are the priorities as I head into the next term. Along with that is the fact that this is the time. We have a number of people here from labor I met this morning with, talking about the economic times are good here and they're going to grow over the next 3 to 4 years. That's the time when the sun is shining to fix the roof. That's the time to take the money that we have to reinvest into these social issues that need addressing. And at the same time, infrastructure is part of that. That is why I led the charge to reduce the debt, eliminate our debt. We were so close to doing that. And every time we dropped $1, we were spending that way, we could put that money back into infrastructure. So there are many issues, and they do change around. The chamber put out a thing asking for your pick 3 out of 18. That's not possible. Because on any given day, sometimes as mayor, I'm a leader. Sometimes I'm just a cheerleader. Sometimes I'm just a spear carrier. And that is the way it works. And that's why a mayor has to understand the fabric of the community, to be a friend of business, to be a friend of labor, our First Nation friends, work with educators, to keep on doing the things. Sometimes you're very successful, sometimes you're not, but you continue on a path because you have a long-term vision, a vision that understands the dynamics of the community and how you build coalitions. And I would also make the case to you, outside of this community, we are well known for our ability to collaborate. And that's why we've been successful with the Research Park, Lambton College, and the development of the biofuel economy in this community.
Thank you. The second question is, Can you address the path you would pursue in order to ensure a cohesive council, stressing the need for a strong, working, transparent relationship with the CAO and administration in general? And we will start with Mayor Bradley.
Thank you. Good question. Something I've done at every term. I sit down with the council and the management at the time. What has happened here in the last 4 years, there's a complete unbalance in the system. I can't point to one decision of Sarnia City Council that wasn't an endorsement of a staff report. When councillors, my friend Councillor Bucci, when he'd raise questions, I'd raise questions, we'd be shut down. When citizens want to come to council, they're told they can't come. We had another example last night. I would return, the former ombudsman said, Sarnia was the most open government in Ontario, repeatedly when he was speaking across this province. I want to return to that. I want to take away the Fortress City Hall mentality. I want to take down the walls, both physical and others, that have disenfranchised the taxpayers. We've cut the hours of service. We've cut the reception. We're not listening to the people that pay for what we do and who we are. There needs to be a balance. It needs to be a right balance. I use the expression, it's like a seesaw. It should be like this. Right now it's like this. And I would make the case to you, the administration is running the city and the political people are not doing their job as it relates to bringing that balance of political accountability and staff accountability.
Thank you. Well, clearly my colleague has a completely different interpretation of what has gone on in the past 4 years. I would suggest to you that what has happened in previous times is that the seesaw has been like this, and now the seesaw is like this. It's a completely different dynamic. I have not sat down with the mayor to have discussions about what I wanted to do in the next 4 years when I was elected in 2014. But what I have done is I've sat down with my colleagues to discuss what they wanted to do, what their visions were. There's been an inference that the mayor was the one who instigated the elimination of the debt. But I can tell you that in 2003, I belonged to a group called the Coalition of Sarnia Taxpayers. That was our #1 issue, to reduce the debt from 110 million to from 110 million to 10 million today. That was our primary focus, and that's what we did. We received several threats from the mayor because we were going on that path, but we continued on that path. Coming back to what is happening today, and what is a proper council and the way to work, a councillor, or the mayor needs to be one among equals. The mayor is not better than councillor. Councils are the decision-making body. We listen and understand what the staff is telling us, but we are the final decision makers. And you saw it again last night. The recommendation that came forward with regard to Kmart Crescent was not the recommendation that was accepted. Rather, councillors came forward and created another one. And that was accepted by all of council unilaterally. Councillors work together to make the decisions. The mayor is the person who promotes that decision. The mayor is not the person who takes away everything from council so that they are basically trained seals. That is not good governance.
Thank you. Our next question is, we have seen in the past few years, we have seen a deterioration of the city's infrastructure, a pool, community center, and arena closed, playgrounds decaying, and now we've been told tens of millions of dollars of road, sewer, and water line work is long overdue. We've even had to go to the public to raise money to fix the Sarnia Arena, to do what our tax dollars should be doing. Is it realistic to maintain a fixation with eliminating our deficit, small by many municipal standards, or zero tax increases while we let the city infrastructure crumble? And we will start with Councillor Gillis.
Thank you, Alison. Talking about the debt reduction and getting it down to 10 million is one of the biggest achievements of our council. The council certainly that I've served on for the past 15 years. Is it good to be a slave to debt reduction? In my estimation, no, it isn't. Not when you've got it down to 10 million. Now it's time to refocus. Now it's time to readjust our financial plan so that we aren't having our assets throughout the city deteriorate. What we have done in the past 10 years is we have infused $250 million into our infrastructure, and it's not been enough. The problem is that the infrastructure debt that we have is enormous. And it's not just significant to our city, but rather to all cities right across Canada. What we have done is we have created an asset management plan. You need a plan in order to move forward. And now we have to discover how we are going to pay to keep those infrastructure obligations that we have. Coming back to our specific assets that you mentioned in your question, we were not even aware as councillors that there was a problem. We kept adding money and putting money into what little we had into Parks and Rec, but it wasn't enough. And it took a very strong administrative team to tell us that we had a problem, and we did act accordingly. But there were a few things that were mentioned. The fact that we have had no growth in 30 years, we have had no increase in our population, has led us to not have a sufficient tax base. Everything comes off the residential tax base, and that is not good management. That is not good leadership. We have to expand and grow.
Well, that gets to the nub of the question. If you're in that situation where there's been growth, it's been progressive, it hasn't been as high as we want, that's when you curtail your spending. The budget in the last 4 years has gone up by $20 million in a slow growth economy. That's why I see the mayor's role much differently. You elect me to be your leader. When you have a problem, this is who you call. This is who you want accountability from. When we started on the plan, and it started before Councillor Gillis was elected, the fiscal fitness program, we were paying 13 cents on the dollar. Every dollar you contributed, 13 cents went to the debt. That's why we needed to get it down. But as we reduced that down to 5, 3, 2 cents, all that money went back into infrastructure. And the basic issue is this. Across this country, there's a $6 billion infrastructure crisis. It is everywhere. And with David Miller, the mayor of Toronto, we proposed a solution to the Harper government, which they rejected, was simply, when you lower the GST, give 1% back to the municipalities. That would have brought in $4 million, would have brought in $20 million to Sarnia. And we could have dealt with our infrastructure issues. Until you change the fundamentals of the property tax system, only 6 cents of every dollar that's taken from the taxpayer comes back to cities. That's the fundamental issue that needs to change. And I've been an ongoing advocate to do that. And I do say in the Parks and Rec side, it's an embarrassment. We lost the Showmobile, Germain Park Arena, the Kinsman Center, and Jackson Pool. That's not good management. Those are services people should have had renewed, and they weren't renewed. They were simply shut down.
Thank you. Our next question is, how do you propose that the city deal with the issue of affordable assisted living for our aging population?
Well, one of the downsides of the NOVA investment is that I meet with a lot of different property owners and residents, is that the market is pushing up the availability of rental units, for example, and housing, and is increasing the price dramatically. So there are people that are being captured in that are struggling. Working through the county, we have brought on new affordable housing. We need to do more. I'm a little concerned that with the new Ontario government that is not likely to happen. But that is something that needs to be tackled. That gap that across Canada we have between those that have and those that don't has continued to grow instead of going the other way. That is what is the fundamental thing wrong with what's happening in the national economy. And that there was a program that I promoted, County Council accepted it, which was to look at a guaranteed income program for a number of cities in this province. The Conservatives have ended that program, but it was a chance to try to move people away from social assistance and getting a check to paying taxes and being involved in their communities. So it's a very critical issue across this country. It's a very difficult one locally because we've got a two-tier government. The county is responsible for that issue. They have a $40 million plan to renew the infrastructure. They just lost $2.5 million from the Ford government's cuts. I hope that we can continue that plan, that reinvest in what we have. It also positions us to now look at doing more housing for those in need, particularly that aging population, particularly women who are over 65, who are just surviving on the basic income they receive from the federal and provincial governments.
Thank you for the question. Could you repeat it one more time, please, Allison?
How do you propose that the city deal with the issue of affordable assisted living for our aging population?
Thank you very much. I want to clarify a couple of things before I answer that particular question. It came up from the previous question. And the Mayor, Mr. Bradley, said that the debt reduction policy was initiated before I was elected. That, however, is incorrect. The debt reduction policy was enacted and implemented in 2005. I was elected in 2003. Coming back to affordable housing, I have been privileged to sit on the PM committee, which is the committee that looks after affordable housing and social services at the county level. And I've been on that for several years. As deputy warden, I was privileged to be a part of the Maxwell Park Place renewal, the old Marsh and Garland site, if you recall, that was falling apart, that was riddled with crime. It was a blight on the community. And we built a beautiful new facility that's geared to income for seniors, primarily women. The other thing that I am excited about is the fact that there is a new concept that we are looking at with regard to affordable housing for seniors, and it's called a community campus. It takes away seniors from the traditional institutional, affordable, and assisted living that we've had in the past and integrates them into our community so that the community can access the assets that they have, but the amenities that are there are specifically geared to seniors. There's walking trails, there's individual units. It's almost like a land lease community, but more. And it is something that we are really going to push because we need to have a place where we can have aging in place. We want our seniors to be still active and a part of our community, and this is an opportunity and a way for that to happen. So I'm very excited about what is happening, and I'm hearing bells, so I guess I should wrap up.
Thank you. Our next question is, with the St. Clair Township Nova announcement, Sarnia is on the cusp of a potential influx of investment dollars. What have each of you done in the past to facilitate relationships with business, labor, and industry to ensure these investment dollars stay here? And we'll start with Councillor Gillis.
First of all, I want to recognize that the Sarnia-Lapnet Economic Partnership is financed through the county, and it is a very good partnership that we have. I have never had the honor to sit on that. I have sat on the CCAC. No, sorry, that's not the anachronism. The County Development Board, and that's not the correct name either. But it's been a few years, I must say. The Sarnia-Lapton Economic Partnership, though, was the brainchild of Roger Galloway, who recognized that we needed to bring industry and commercial and the people of Sarnia and labor together in order to progress our city, because we were having difficulty at the time with plants that were closing. I personally have been affected by plant closures. My husband worked at Dow Chemical, and it was a bitter blow to see that go. It was a bitter blow to not have the leadership within our community step up to the plate for our large industries. It's been a bitter blow to see so many of our large industries gone and not have the leadership step up to do the right thing and speak up to keep those large industries here. If I'm elected, I will speak up for our heavy industries, our small industries, just like I did when I went to AMO just a few weeks ago and had the honor to talk to MPP Stephen Lecce, who is the provincial assistant to the Premier, about the oversized load corridor, because that is fundamental to the growth and the job creation that we are going to have, that we already have, but we're going to build on in the future. The modules that are built in the fabricating companies that are here in the city of Sarnia are the lifeblood of our city right now. Before, they used to be the fence line customers for our major industries. Now they are becoming our major industries, and we have to do everything we can in order to make them get their product to market, get it out west. Thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate this question. It was the large industry that came to me when there was conflict between business and labor and said, we need your help. And I brought them together with the construction, the building trades, and that led to the project agreements. Those project agreement settlements have been a part of every major project over $50 million that have been built here in the last decade or so. And they're an incredible marketing tool. They allow us to say that you will have this relationship with labor, you will have a guarantee of no strikes, and you will have a very engaged relationship throughout the building of these particular plants. Chair of the research park, chair of SLEP for many years. There's over, I agree with Dow, I worked at Dow a long time ago. But what's happening on that site now? There's over $1 billion in proposed projects on that and the former Lanxess site. That's long-term vision, all based, or many of them based, on biofuels. We made a decision 18 years ago to try to move into that economy. It was long and difficult and painful, but we did it because we worked together, business, industry, myself, and labor. We took the view that we had to move away from fossil fuels. We had to still support that industry, and as you see with Nova, it is a huge part of our economy still. But it was actually being on the front lines, working with those groups. And one of my legacies down the road that I will always remember is being part of creating those project agreements. Nova has it for the big project. All the other projects that have occurred here in the last number of years have used those project agreements because they felt comfortable and safe in this community as it related to building the plant and having a viable product with a strong labor force here that is one of the best in the world.
Thank you. Our next question is, by the end of the decade, 1 in 5 Canadians will identify with a disability. In the past, Sarnia and the City of Sarnia has been known as taking a lead in accessibility and disability hiring. How will you ensure the city will continue to provide leadership? And we'll start with Mayor Bradley.
Well, thank you. The Mayor's Challenge started here. I saw Bob Van Sickle. It was his idea to me back in 2010. David Onley, the Lieutenant Governor at the time, embraced that. And it took me to Newfoundland and Alberta, where those two provinces also embraced the Mayor's Challenge. Even later this week, I've got 2 different communities I'm talking to about that. It's easy to issue a proclamation. It's easy to raise a flag. It doesn't change anything. And I am disappointed in the last few years. We used to be a leader across this country. We were the #1 community for intellectually challenged students to be hired. We no longer are, and that's disappointing. The reality is, if I'm reelected, I'm going to restart the Mayor's Challenge with a business-like approach, and I think you know my friends Mark Wafer and Joe Dale from Rotary at Work who've spoken to you, that we have got a common message across this country that it is just good for business to hire those who are challenged and disabled. And that is a mantra that we need to reinstall in this community. We've had some amazing successes. My feeling right now is that we're just paddling water, and if we want to be a leader again, then we have to do some very creative things. The fact is, many people will be disabled through many different reasons, and that workforces tend to say, when you ask them, how many disabled people do you have, they will name people that were all disabled after they were employed, not that they were brought into that workforce. And if you want diversity in any community, you're probably talking about 40% of the public has some sort of disability, and they need to be included, because a community cannot be inclusive until everyone has a chance to win. And that's what the Mayor's Challenge did, and that's what that ongoing, very strong relationship that I have with the Ontario Disability Employment Network and with Sarnia-Lambton Community Living. We work this every day that we can to give people a chance to succeed.
Thank you, Alison, again for that question. And I certainly want to applaud Mr. Bradley for all of the work that he's done to promote the disabled, accessibility, and to get the disabled working in the community as not a favor, but as inclusive to our communities, true members of our communities. I have a person, a relative, that is disabled, and it has been such a treat to see community living that has put so much effort into getting work for our disabled, getting work, meaningful work for our disabled. But I don't want to even use that terminology, because that in itself doesn't speak to inclusivity. One thing that I have noticed as well is the fact, and I will take this back to not just younger people, but also older people. We have a lot of senior citizens who have children who are disabled, and now they are facing the crunch. What will happen to my children in the future? What will happen if something happens to me? And I take you back to what we were talking about before, about the campus community, because it ties right in to the needs of the disabled and the needs of parents who have disabled children, because it gives them the opportunity to live in this place without without their parents, but to learn how to function in a community that is warm and welcoming with all the safeguards in place. Mayor Bradley, Mr. Bradley, has done a wonderful job with making us all aware of the advantages of having the disabled fully employed, and I will continue to continue to promote that within the city as a leader, but I will also recognize the work that has been done and the groundwork that has been laid.
Thank you. Our next question is, can you speak to the IT revamp at City Hall? Why was it needed? And what are your hopes or vision for IT moving forward? We'll start with Councillor Gillis.
Thank you. With the IT department, a lot of people have been asking questions about that. We commissioned a report to be done to learn what stage we were in with the IT department, because IT is so important to every progressive community, but particularly to a government agency. You cannot have an IT department that doesn't function well. You cannot have an IT department that doesn't have the ability to help the staff that are there do their job. What we have done is we have taken the report that's come forward, which gave us, by the way, a failing grade in what we have, a failing grade. That is not good for a government who has to communicate to senior levels of government on a continuing basis. And what we have done is we have made the IT department broaden out so we have a more online presence. And this has been an extremely exciting thing for many of our citizens. A couple of things. It's allowed our citizens to engage more with the Q&A in an ability, in a new way that they've never been able to do before. We would have town hall meetings, and we would be lucky if we would get 50 to 60 people if the issue was strong. But having an online survey allows thousands of people to give comment. The other thing we are finding is that parents, senior citizens love the online presence because they can sign up for pickleball if they want to. They can sign up to get their kids into hockey registration in a timely way. They don't have to go and stand in line and wait for hours with their money in their hand. It has been a wonderful addition to our community.
Well, it always comes back to, who's going to argue IT? We all have it in our lives. We didn't have the best IT set up. We didn't have the worst. Going from 4 to 11 people in the space of a year or two, when I talk to industry in the Valley, they are just stunned at the number of people we have in IT. And when even I look at the county, which has 3 times the number of employees, our IT department's heading in the same direction as they are as it relates to the number of staff. I want more accessibility, but I can also tell you the story that someone proudly boasted to me. Those hundreds of people, I know of an individual on one of the issues that clicked on 300 times to get their views across. So what you always need, and it comes back to this, face-to-face engagement. I remember one waterfront discussion we had with the council of the day, and we did it down on the waterfront. We had 300 plus people show up. Online has its place, but it doesn't replace the ability to communicate directly with your council and your elected leadership. The other part I'd like to just mention is more of a side opinion. When there are consultation meetings held anymore in government, they bring you to a meeting and they tell you what they're doing, and you're supposed to nod your head. True consultation is an engaging discussion, whether it be online or in person. Do I support better IT services? Yes. But when I look and you go back, if you want to damn the economy and the growth, then how can you afford to turn around and to increase that type of staffing, which is very substantial, and in the years ahead, that number is going to come back to haunt future councils because of the number of people on the payroll. And I haven't seen personally in the website and other areas any great improvement on how the city's functioning as it relates to information and finding information and communicating with the public.
Thank you. Our next question is there anything further you think the City of Sarnia could do to help with the problems surrounding mental health?
Last year I met with the Minister of Health, Eric Hoskins. He invited myself and 9 of the bigger city mayors in Ontario to sit down and talk about the opioid crisis. And out of that came a broader discussion about mental health, housing. They're all interrelated, like the Olympic rings, right? They're all connected together. Our police department, if you were to, and I'm generalizing here, if you were to take the mental health issues and people they're dealing with out of the equation, they probably would be doing a lot less work in this community. Mental health is a big issue, and I'll point back to what happened at the time I was mayor and Mike Harris was premier. They closed the mental health facilities, but they never built up the community support that was needed. And I've been involved in initiatives over the last number of years with suicide prevention, suicide awareness, mental health issues, because it is linked to all the other issues we're dealing with. And unfortunately, it's growing. I will say one thing I really commend the community on is the community has been not scared of talking about mental health issues. I was at an event just a little while ago with 400 or 500 young people who were being told there's no stigma to having mental health issues. There's very few people, if any, in this room, that, including myself, that haven't had depression or mental health issues. The question is, what can we do as a community to deal with that? That is the bigger struggle, because we need more investment. And for example, I think with policing, there should be more mental health workers, not just police officers out there helping with people, because that's one of the common things they run into. Mental health issues leads to crime, leads to confrontation, and brings about other things that shouldn't happen to people. So totally committed, totally involved with lots of groups trying to do better things. We need to build up the houses we have now instead of trying to bring something forward new. But the groups that are out there working, whether it be St. Clair Children and Youth or others, are doing a very good job, but they need more resources, they need more money. And that was the point of my meeting with Hoskins. And it actually led to some money coming in here for dealing with addictions through the community health group.
Yes, I would echo what Mr. Bradley has said with regard to getting more monies into our economy with regard to mental health. Mental health is something that is growing, and I don't believe it's growing because of anything that we have done. I think it's because we're recognizing it more. Suicides have been up, and at the county we have been adapting new programs to try to deal with that, and we have been somewhat successful, but not as successful as I would like to have been. Certainly when it comes to the detox center, we need to get that up and running, and we need to get it up and running fast. When it comes to the opioid addiction crisis that we have right across the country, the federal government has stepped forward and said that there is going to be new money, but we have to see it. Where is it? Mental health isn't something that we want to hide. Mental health is something that we want to embrace. We want to be able to help the people that need the help. And working as an RN, I was devastated when Clark was closed, because of course the people are just pushed out into the street, and there is no resources for them, no fail-safe for them, and we're still dealing with it. We can't deal with this anymore. We need the resources from the senior levels of government, but we also need to recognize, as you alluded to, that our police department and our fire department are the very first people to react to a crisis, a family crisis, or someone in an addiction crisis. And they need the tools that they don't have right now in order to deal with that. And we have to find a way to make that happen.
Thank you. Now I will ask each of the candidates to make their final closing remarks. It's 2 minutes, and we will reverse our speaking order from the beginning, so we will start with Councillor Gillis. Wherever you like.
All right. I'll go back up. First of all, I just want to be clear with regard to the actual amount of people that work at the City of Sarnia. Yes, there has been an increase in the number of people that work for IT, but overall there are 17 less people that work for the City of Sarnia. This election will be a game changer for Sarnia, where we create a new roadmap to follow a new course for the future of our children and our grandchildren. We can have the best plans, but if we don't have the right leadership, there will be no good execution. As mayor, I will be approachable and work with council. We will be ready to do business with the people of Sarnia, with industry, with labor, with government, to make things happen in Sarnia, and to make Sarnia the place you want to be. Leadership equals accountability. Leadership matters. Vote Gillis for 2018 for mayor. Thank you very much.
Well, I will agree this is a game changer election. If you want to take back your city hall, if you want true accountability, if you want that balance to be there where the political people play the role they should play and are open and are approachable for citizens, that's where I'm going to take this city again. Take it back, reset what has happened over the last 4 years. I disagree. More debt. We took on $6 million in debt. First time we've gone to the banks in 13 years. So what's that going to cost us? This was 5.3, so we ended up paying another $1 million in debt when we didn't have to do it. We had the way to finance that. What I want is a city hall that is open to people. Right now, it is a fortress. Its nickname within the employees is Fort Sarnia. That's the way it treats people, and that's wrong for this city. I've shown over the 30 years, accessibility is what I live for. Openness is what I live for. I work with business and labor. I work with First Nations. What I always need, though, is a cooperative council. And in the first year of this council, I sat down with councillors, went through the issues with them, and tried to plot a direction. I want to reset back to get rid of the debt, to continue to decrease the number of employees through attrition, to not cut services, and at the same time, maintain reasonable restraint. You know, the tax increases in the city have been substantial. If it wasn't for the county, that's what's protected. That's what's protected people from knowing we've had 5% and 8% in a 1% growth economy. I'm not the greatest at math, but I understand you can't sustain that. And I'm trying to protect your interests so that little old lady on Brock Street who's so famous in this community can stay in her home. That's the best thing you can do for people, is give them the ability to stay in their homes and to have a livable city, and not to tax them out of those places, whether you be in business or in homes. So if I'm re-elected, I'll be coming back with a very clear agenda, hopefully with a new council that is for change. Thank you.
On behalf of the Rotary Club of Sarnia, I would like to thank our two mayoral candidates, Mike Bradley and Anne-Marie Gillis, particularly for your commitment to public service and to the city of Sarnia. And to the audience, let's thank our two speakers. And I would like to encourage everyone to make sure that they're on the voters list. You understand how you vote in the upcoming election, and to make sure you vote and encourage your friends and neighbors to vote as well.